Spooky's Jumpscare Mansion, a game you most likely used to see plastered all across the internet. Ever since its first release back in 2014, it has had a fairly sizable following even to this day. Here's a quick little overview of Spooky's Jumpscare Mansion for those of you watching who do not know what it is. Essentially, the core gameplay can be described as going through 1,000 rooms while several different entities chase you. The game initially presenting itself as something that doesn't take itself too seriously. In the first few rooms, you would get these silly little jump scares that kind of poke fun at horror games that over-rely on jump scares. The further you progress into the mansion, you begin to realize that there are monsters inside of this mansion. Give or take, after every 100 or 75 rooms, a new monster will be introduced which will chase you down. Your main objective is to survive until room 1000 and uncover the secrets this mansion is hiding. If the concept of going through several rooms being chased by different monsters is familiar to you, it's because a few horror games in recent years have taken inspiration from this game. I don't need to name them, you know what they are. The concept of the game is great, subverting expectations and capitalizing on the universal fear of being chased. The game has almost been out for 10 years, and the progress this game has made, in retrospect might seem a bit slow, is quite impressive. Over the years, this game went from being an indie game on IndieDB, where all of the models in the game were 2D and the FOV was fucking horrific, to getting a digital release on Steam and eventually many other platforms, with an overhauled HD edition in which most of the models are now 3D, and now getting a soon-to-be physical release, coming to the PS5 and Nintendo Switch. This newest installment will also be available on the digital versions. It will be an installation update rather than a separate purchase. The physical release of this game includes an update called the Spooky Object Update Project, abbreviated to SOUP. That's why it's called the SOUP update, where each specimen will be given its own respective 3D model. As I mentioned earlier, in the HD edition, this type of update was also applied. These new 3D models looked exactly the same as their 2D counterparts. Well, more or less. In the HD edition, it seems like a few things were noticeably skipped when it came to getting new 3D models. Some objects and characters in the game still had 2D sprites. With this new physical release coming soon, these and any other remaining sprites that are still 2D will be given 3D models. The trailers for the physical release came out in early 2024, which did feature many new additions. Some have noticed that you can use a flashlight in seemingly different locations of the mansion instead of being confined to only using them in dark rooms. And of course, many realized that the 3D models for the remaining sprites were implemented, and that they made brand new models for all the specimens. Now, I wasn't too up to date on the development of Spookies in recent years, but I must admit, this was a bit shocking. I thought they might have stuck with the old models that they made in the HD edition, but it seems like they've gone the extra mile. But something felt off about the way people reacted to these changes. You see, when the new models were revealed, the fans of this game were essentially split into two. One half adoring the new models and the other half fucking despising them. Curious as to why this was the case, I decided to look at each of the models and compare them to their previous counterparts to see exactly what all of the fuss was about. I'll be covering each new model seen in both the trailers and the teasers. From what we've been shown so far, there doesn't seem to have been an update to any of the visuals of Specimen 1. This is one of the only specimens that has stayed relatively the exact same since its first rendition back in 2014. Now, there could be new or different variants of Specimen 1, but as of right now, that is uncertain. Specimen 2. Taking a look at his new design, it looks as if everything has become twice as exaggerated. He looks extremely skinny now, his teeth have become rigid, his fingers look way sharper, the anatomy of his body looks way more realistic, and generally he looks creepier. The new animations he has for both his walk and his attack both look really good. Overall, this model looks alright, and I consider it to be an upgrade from what we previously had. The third specimen is similar in the sense that it just looks like an upgraded version of its previous model. There's a good bit of exaggeration around the eyes, which makes it look fucking terrifying. The fangs look more pointy and not like pieces of Play-Doh. The new chasing animation, I like the way the legs move, but it looks like it's moving at a slower frame rate than everything else. This was probably made to capture how an actual spider or centipede moves. Outside of that, this looks very good. I mean, upon first seeing it, I couldn't really spot too many differences, but putting them side by side, you can really see how much more details were added. Specimen 4 got some interesting upgrades. I do really appreciate the shadows around the eyes, face, and neck, where you can clearly tell where the face stops and the neck starts, which you couldn't tell with the previous model, so it looked really weird. Both the length and positioning of her hair have been changed, her arms are longer, her shoulders look less stiff, the blood on her hands is way more prominent. I've also noticed that there is this dark texture covering the lower half of her body that slowly fades up, and overall just more details given to her model. Everything seems quite alright. Some might consider it an upgrade. However, this is where I state an opinion. I definitely think they should have stuck with the more gray hue to her robe. The old one made it look like clothing that had been discolored due to time. The new one looks too pink, like she bought it yesterday. But that's not an objectively bad thing. I see they've brought back the slices out of the model, which always hurt my eyes. I kind of wish they stuck with the classic one in the regard of just being solid, but that's a completely different point, okay? I think it looks pretty good. So far, the ones I have mentioned were all generally received nicely when it came to their new look. But Specimen 5, on the other hand, not so much. The new model looks like this. Which, mind you, the model doesn't look bad. I think all around, the textures on the body and the face are quite nice. The proportions are a little bit wonky, but besides that, the model seems great. However, comparing this model to the one previously made, I can piece together why many people were not too happy with this change. Any remaining features from the previous model either seem to have been toned down a lot or have gone completely missing, besides the concept of this specimen being inspired by Silent Hill, which the original model did significantly better at conveying that inspiration. This one doesn't. The original design looked imposing, and in a way powerful. These broad shoulders and an eerily confident walk cycle, not going slow but not exactly moving fast, like they know they're going to get you no matter how fast you run. Oh, trust me, if you have a fear of mannequins, this will fuck you up. This new model looks odd. In a way, it looks weak. Like a strong gust of wind comes by and they just fucking fall to the ground comatose. Those broad shoulders have vanished, leading to the head size looking rather silly because it's damn near wider than the shoulders. They've made her way too skinny for seemingly no reason. That confident walk I mentioned earlier turned into a confident walk of a runway model, which, I mean, slay, I guess, but it's not fucking scary. This kind of walk is not ideal for a scary monster in mind, especially one that's chasing you. Now, one last thing I want to mention is the addition of the holes in the face, which the previous Specimen 5 did have in a death screen, but not in the base game. The majority of these changes didn't have to happen. Now, unlike Specimen 5, Specimen 6's changes are a bit less significant. I've noticed that they've removed a bit of inspiration from Majora's Mask, which is what Specimen 6's original textures were primarily inspired by. More specifically, Ben Drowned. I forgot you existed. Now, this theme doesn't seem entirely lost with the new model, but they've definitely toned it down a bit. I wouldn't be taken aback if the environment he is now in is slightly altered as well. Now, talking about the model, his head's a bit larger, everything on his face has been given more detail, especially the teeth. His eyes seem to pierce through the darkness now, which is, these are some pretty solid additions. This new model does seem to emphasize the fact that he is a puppet. Mainly, you can tell by looking at his skin and seeing that it looks a lot more like wood. Alongside this, the strings attached to him are way more visible. And similarly to the previous models, he looks a bit skinnier. I do kind of wish he still had that more polygon N64 look, but the new one doesn't look bad without it. I really did not think this one was going to be updated, but here we are. Now, despite what people have said about the new models, I think we can all huddle up together and say Specimen 7 looks objectively way better now. The original texture looked super weird. I couldn't tell what presence this thing was trying to give off. I see some faces, and the faces are smiling, And then there's random pieces of what? Bones maybe? Like what the fuck am I looking at here? The new one, you can distinctly tell what's being shown, even through this low quality image. I couldn't find a higher resolution. The faces all look like they're in agony and excruciating pain, which gives it this way more horrifying visual compared to what we've had previously. The bones are more distinct, and there seems to be some pieces of intestines around the image, some pretty gnarly stuff. Also, this specimen, and seemingly the whole area, is a darker shade of red. The other one almost hurt to look at because it was so brightly red. I do find it a little bit comical that the one model everyone seems to love is the one that probably took the least amount of time to make, because it's a fucking picture. The fan favorite, Specimen 8. Now, upon first glance, it may not seem like too much has changed, but really a good bit has. Side by side, you can sort of tell that he is slightly shorter than the previous model, but the antlers stand a bit taller, so technically they're the same height, but not really. Both his head and eyes are larger, his body is a lot wider and more irregular. The rib cage underneath the cloak is also a lot wider as well. Speaking of which, the rib cage's details in this model are very interesting. You can see some of the bones looking as if they're melting together, and I think this visually looks great. The new model also does not feature the sharp teeth. Instead, the teeth look more similar to how real deer teeth look. His new chase animation looks really good. The cloak flaps in the air all fucking sporadically. The old one just looks stiff in comparison, if we're being honest. I would like to point out that some of the backgrounds for the promotional trailers uses the older model of Specimen 8 instead of the new one. I've got no idea why, but I thought it was worth mentioning. Now, it might be a little bit of back and forth whether this model is considered an upgrade or not, but I think it looks pretty good. You ever play this game and then forget to pause? You go and get a drink, unload the dishes, or go piss. You come back and suddenly you're dead? That's because of this guy. Specimen 9. This is one of those specimens that have two models depicting the exact same instance. There is one in the base game, which looks like this, and one in Karamari Hospital. That one looks like this. I prefer this one due to how much of its face is consumed by the shadow. It makes it look fucking horrifying. Now, did the new model dive further into that concept of like over-exaggerated shadows? Well, kinda. It kind of looks like the in-between of the first one and the second one visually. Interestingly, this new model makes him look more human. The other ones looked sort of human, but they looked way more like monsters. The new one, it's like, I swear I've seen some old men at the gas station that look exactly like this guy. I do find it a little bit weird how this one turned out, because you can take a look at the concept art, and it looks like the idea was to make it more relative to the original model in the base game, but the finalized product doesn't look like that. The new animation they have for him, as of right now, it looks like this. I do like what's trying to be made here. Specimen 9 was always about the whole still face with the open jaw and then slowly approaching you. It was never this animalistic. This makes him look a whole lot scarier, but it's gonna take some getting used to. Now, Specimen 9 has a separate model, which is his boss form. This is the one you see in the late game. Now, we've also got a good view of the new iteration of this model as well, so let's go ahead and take a look at it.
Jesus Christ, what the fuck happened?
I'm joking, okay? I'm kidding. Putting each iteration of the boss form side by side, you can immediately see that the new one has lost the deep red color to his body. Besides that, you can also see that he is way more frail. His legs are shockingly skinny alongside his forearms. Weirdly enough, Specimen 9, the one like the floating head, looks more human. Boss form looks more inhuman, which actually can work really well considering, you know, the transformation to the boss form. And I must admit, this new face makes him look very creepy. His eyes now look as if they're going to light up the area around him, which, depending on how it looks in game, could look very badass. The previous models focus more on being imposing, while the new one steers more towards looking creepy. And I can see that that kind of worked in that regard. This was another model from the new update that I didn't really see too many people give positive feedback on. If the first reaction to a monster that is meant to be a creepy, disgusting parasite is this, chances are the monster is not fucking scary. Specimen 10 had easily the worst reception thus far. From the way it looked to the way it walked, nobody was saying anything positive about it. Before we look at the current Specimen 10, let's look at the old Specimen 10. No, not the old model, I mean the worm eel thing. Yeah, many may not know, but this was originally going to be Specimen 10, but was replaced by what we have today. So that model essentially aided in the introduction of Specimen 10. Specimen 10 being this parasite, like, just thing. This guy also got a new model, and I've gotta say, it looks pretty damn good. He is now way larger, and he has some face animations. The previous one was just still face moving towards you. His eyes and mouth are now both like huge. His teeth also look way sharper. The new animation of him breaking the vent cover to come and get you looks incredible, which I'm a bit surprised was never the case. He looks great, really good model. Now, let's move on from that positive lighting. Moving on to the current Specimen 10, the new model. I will be one of the few to say that I like the way the model looks on a base level. Having the teeth be misaligned and having that small line of skin around the outside makes it look a lot more gross than it was before. The design of the interior part is way more detailed and isn't that black void that we had with the original model. However, looking at this model, I had issues with it, but I couldn't figure out what it was. It took me like 5 minutes of looking at it, and then I realized, you're trying to tell me this thing just erupted out of a previous specimen from the brain, mind you, and there isn't a single speck of blood on its body? But for why? Also, another thing I noticed, there's like little to no textures on the head or the legs. It just looks like a mannequin. There's no details. There are some shadows, but that's it. Now, on to the one thing everyone's talking about, the walk animation. Having the arms bounce like this makes it look super wacky. It makes it look like if this thing went to attack you, the arms would just be too floppy to even damage you. Like getting hit with a fucking pool noodle or something. Pairing this animation with the way it looks now, it looks like a butterfly. You can't take this thing seriously, is what I'm trying to say. The original one had a little bit of bounce in it too, but that one, it looked more firm. And it was slow. This new one bounces fucking like sheet metal, and the animation is just so fast, yet they're not covering that much ground. Overall, just like weird shit. However, there is a good ending for the Specimen. Due to the amount of recoil this sparked in the community, the developers of the physical release made a post on Twitter saying, "We hear you loud and clear, and for better and for worse. How's this?" They fixed everything I had an issue with. There's now a bit of blood on the outside of the skin and a lot more detail to the head, legs, and even the inside of the mouth. It now has more variety in shades of color, and there's also this veiny texture on the inside. It's really good. They went back and they revamped a good bit, and no one seems to have any more problems. The only other thing as of right now that has not been shown off is if they have redone the walk animation. So I suppose we're gonna have to wait and see how that turns out. Ah yes, my favorite specimen, Specimen 11. I am glad to say that his new model looks fucking amazing. A little bit of bias might be at play here, but dude, look at him! Right from the start, you can see the horns are a lot larger, and so are his eyes. It seems like the substance leaking from his eyes is no longer blood, but instead something more similar to ink. The new iteration has these legs that look like they more closely resemble a farm animal. Considering that he is a demon that resides in a fast food joint, it gives him a closer connection to what the food was made out of. Now, I'm not entirely sure if the previous model had this. I cannot really tell, but if it did, it looks way more apparent now than it did back then. The textures of his skin have a variety of dirtiness and different shades. The amount of movement he does in his new animation looks really well animated, especially in comparison to the old one where it was just his hand was out and then he just glided towards you. This one has a lot of realistic movement and also emphasizes the fact that he's floating. All around looks really, really cool. To me, of course, you know, you could disagree. When this new model was first shown to the public, I was confused about the takes I was hearing. I heard others left and right say, "Oh, just like all the other models, they made him skinnier." And I'm like, Where? Comparing the two, the new model, he's way larger. The only reason to think that he wouldn't or isn't is because he slouches over more in the new animation. Because mind you, his shoulder ends here. And if you look at the concept art and even the finalized model, fucking the shoulders are like the size of buildings. And he is not skinny nor frail by any means. I think this model looks way cooler and a bit more imposing. The only thing I do miss from the original model was the blood coming out of the eyes, but besides that, I gotta give credit where it's due. He looks great. Now, unfortunately, unlike all the other models we've mentioned today, this one did not get a full sneak peek as to what he looks like now. The only image I was able to find was this. So, not much, but I guess I'll indulge. Off the bat, excellent shading. Excellent. This shading is fucking awesome. It's something the original model lacked in that could have made him look a whole lot creepier. His skin looks way more pale, and he also looks a lot older than he did previously. I mean, his code name is the Old Man, and he didn't look that old to begin with. I was gonna mention that he no longer has chin hair because the old model, it made it look like he had chin hair, okay? I don't know what to say. Apparently that's the shadow his face created, but yeah, that whole thing is gone. His jacket looks a lot more defined, although I can't see much of it. But yeah, that's about it. I kind of wish we would have seen what his scythe looks like now, but I guess we'll have to wait until the full release. Alright, time for Specimen 13. Oh my fuck! Just to be safe, I'm gonna censor this one, okay? Just to be safe. Just to be safe. Something very weird I noticed is that it just looks like a less realistic version of what we already had. Compared to the other one, the hair does not look real, the fishtail doesn't make any sense. Is it trying to be a shark tail? I mean, why else would you make it that instead of this? I mean, fucking hell, it doesn't even look like the fishtail has scales now. With all this being said, I do like the general aesthetic with the new one, but if we're going for realism, the other one looks significantly better. I'm still a bit caught off guard on what the idea with the fishtail is. Mermaids don't have shark tails, or traditionally they don't, and this specimen never had a tail like that, so it just confuses me. But besides that, the animation looks pretty good. I kept looking at it and I was like, wait a second, animation? You never even see her, why would you need animation? And then I realized, now you can see her swimming in the water while chasing you. Beforehand, you would only get splashes in the water that would indicate how close or far away she was. Now, I'm not too sure how to feel about this. On one hand, it does look cool and a bit more realistic. I mean, the water is not that deep, so it doesn't make sense for her to just vanish the second she goes under the water. But now, that fear of the unknown is lost. Beforehand, all you saw was her back, and then she'd dip into the water, and now she's practically invisible. So you never got a clear sighting of what she looked like. Your brain makes up how potentially terrifying her face might look. But now that you can see what she looks like above water, it's not that scary. I'm a bit torn on if I personally like this. I suppose I'll have to play it when it releases to confirm if I do or do not. Now that I've cleared all of the base game specimens, I'll begin talking about the other models in the game that got an update. Those featured in either the Endless mode or just different sections of the base game. In GL Labs, the area where you first encounter Specimen 3, all of the small creatures in the tanks got 3D models, at least from what we see. These models look identical to how they did previously. The brain in the jar was shown in the trailer, but it doesn't look like it got a new model, but then again, the brain is so far away from the camera that I just can't tell. Although we haven't seen it yet, I can assume that the bones and skeletons found around the mansion will also be given their own 3D models. Alright, now moving on to a few of the unknown specimens in the Endless mode. From what's been shown publicly to everybody, I've only seen 2 of the unknown specimens get new models. This being Otto and Spooper, okay? That's a funny name. Anyways, let's start off with Spooper. The shadows are more exaggerated and, he got new shoes? I mean, I can't see that much. But then again, just like the brain in the jar, he is a mile away from the picture or the camera, so I can't really see any of the details. Moving on to Otto. Otto got a phenomenal upgrade here. Originally starting off as a complete joke of a character, solely being added to the game because fans begged for a FNAF-themed character. Interestingly enough, it seems like the developers are going to give him a slightly more serious depiction. You can see he's been given a proper walk animation. I mean, that wouldn't take much considering how the original one looked, and his design looks a bit more run down and, dare I say, creepier. You can see a much greater amount of detail in several aspects, between the joints in the body, the texture of the outside, and the eyes looking more soulless. The only thing I was a little bit confused about was the eyes not being lit up. My confusion went away when I saw one of the developer's tweets saying his eyes do activate when, I guess, he's moving? I don't know. In the showcase, they're not on. But yes, once again, I would consider this to be an upgrade from its previous installment. The final character I'm going to talk about that got a new model is the white cat. The fur textures originally shown on the previous model are now gone, so the cat looks more like a Sphinx cat, which might have been the original idea, but I'm not entirely sure. I mean, it is pink. The ears are smaller, which makes the head look a bit big, but it still looks fine. The size of it now is no longer akin to how an actual cat would be, but now it seems to be about the size of a dog. Outside of that, their head seems to follow you now when you walk around the room, and everything else doesn't seem too bad. I mean, yes, the head does look a little bit big, but besides that, I think it looks decent. However, there is one gripe that I have. Looking at the previous iteration, there doesn't seem to be too much changed on a visual standpoint, but there is one small addition that I think kind of fucks it up a little bit. At the bottom of the model, there is this transparency effect that fades upwards. It does take a huge chunk away from the surrealism of this cat's presence. In the original release, the white cat was something that did not fit with its area. Something that looked almost normal in an unnatural environment. It made you question what exactly was up with the cat and why it kept appearing in these different rooms. In this game, where there are ghosts and monsters made out of slime, giant spider centipedes, and like just a bunch of crazy stuff, you sit back and you're like, oh look, something that looks a bit normal. But then you look in the environment and it's not normal, so it gives you this really weird feeling. But with this new transparency effect it now has, in a way it immediately gives away that, hey, this cat probably has powers, and it probably does some pretty wacky stuff. Now, I'm not sure if this effect is only used in this particular room, but if it's not, then my point is now amplified. I feel as if now the cat fits too well into its environment. If the original appeal was for surrealism, then why would you make this change? This change, I do understand, might seem a bit insignificant to most. I do feel like it is something that takes away from its original atmosphere. Now, of course, there is the off chance that I'm just thinking too much. But yeah, that's what I think. Alright, those were all of the new models from my research. Now, do all of the changes I reviewed today look better than what we have at the moment or what we had in the past? It's subjective. I can see both sides as to why some may like or dislike these new iterations. Here's my take on it. I think they should have just taken the models from the previous iterations and given them a more detailed 3D model, with not all that many design changes. Just dust them off a bit and then boom, add them to the new game. What ended up being the final result looks like some of them got rebooted from a design standpoint. That is in no way me saying the new models look bad. To give credit where it's due, most of them look pretty decent, but the only issue I see is that the models that got redesigns didn't need redesigns. If it's not broken, then why try to fix it? The original designs looked fine, so it just confuses me from a design standpoint why some of the models strayed away from the original look. As I've said a minute ago, looking through all of these models, I can now process both sides of why someone would love or hate this. An idea popped into my head that the developers could have a toggle in the option menu that reverts the designs to their older models. But I checked up on the developer socials and there is no confirmation on if this will or will not be a thing. Or rather, there was, but in recent months it's kind of been changing a little bit. A few months back they said there was not going to be a toggle, and then a couple months ago they said wait and see. So no clear-cut answer.
All I'm asking is that if you do make this addition to the game, do not make it a DLC purchase. I am fucking begging you here.
Before I end this video, I want to say that it should be noted that everything I reviewed today, everything shown in the trailers and the concept videos, is most certainly subject to change. Even though pre-orders were already live and ended, there is no doubt in my mind that some things seen in the trailer and in the model reviews will be different in the final release. So take what I've said about the models with a grain of salt. I hope that with this video I spread insight as to how this update will look and spark some discussion on how you all feel about these changes. Discussions. Alright, discussions, not fucking arguments, okay? Big difference. The developers have been getting an egregious amount of hatred for these designs. Not criticism, mind you, hatred. It would be better for everybody involved if just criticism was applied, instead of this brainless vitriol I've been seeing all over the place. Anyways, if I was able to give you a good insight of what is to come, be sure to leave a like and subscribe to show support to my channel. If you agree or disagree with my takes, be sure to let me know in the comments down below, in a respectful manner. Additionally, if there is some gap in my research where I missed a new addition, be sure to let me know that as well. With all of that said and done, I will see all of you in the next video.